Good morning and welcome. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Amanda Gore. Amanda Gore is a mentor, speaker, and author, and she is a well-renowned speaker in the Hall of Fame, speaking on the power of joy. She has her YouTube channel that you can look up and watch many podcasts, which I have done, Facebook, Instagram, and also her website, amandagore.com. Sorry about that. And on there's lots of information, which I've found very helpful reading myself and looking at her podcasts and like I say, an array, an abundance of information. So Amanda has recently moved back to the USA in the last couple of years, and she's available for a speaker during conferences, either virtually in groups or in person or virtually. And so I have great pleasure in welcoming Amanda Gore here today to speak with us.
Thank you, Belinda. It's wonderful.
Welcome.
You know, I'm so impressed with what you're doing. Go you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So just a little bit about yourself and how you got started, really.
Oh, well, gee, I think that's a bit of a boring story, but I'll start. I didn't even know you could be a speaker. I'm actually a physiotherapist. And
wow.
I was a physio for a long time, and I was always teaching. So I moved from working clinically in hospitals to working in private practice to working at Australia Post as an ergonomist and occupational health professional. And I did a lot of teaching when I was at the tax office and Australia Post and other places where I consulted. And one day I'd co-authored a book and I'd been invited to speak at a conference. Well, I just thought it was like any old other training I'd done. And there was a guy, and my memory of it is that it was like an itty bitty little conference with about 20 people. But there must have been more because I had an MC. And the MC was an American guy who lived in Australia and who is still one of the best, probably the best speaker I've ever seen. Excuse me. He, in America, it's allergy time with ragweed. He could take a crowd up, down, up, down, up, down emotionally, and then finish them on a huge high at the end. Anyway, so at the end of my presentation, he looked at me and he said, "You should be a speaker." And I went, "What's a speaker?" I didn't know. I had no clue. And so he basically mentored me into the business 38 years ago, I think it is now. And since then, I've just had this amazing, blessed journey. Obviously, I was meant to be doing it because I never really had to market or do anything. And I moved to America 20 years ago, and I spent about 10 years here. And then I went back to Australia for 10 years, and now I just moved back just because at 68, you know, well, why not move and change everything in your life again, just because you haven't had enough personal growth and development. So that's really the story of me. So I ended up moving to Virginia Beach on the east coast of America, and I bought a house here, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So I have watched your YouTube podcasts, and I actually am quite interested in reading your book too. So and you know, you focus on the power of joy, and you know, it's stuck in my mind. You know, you call joy just one of you, and that's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, most people won't know, but I used joy. So I write Joy, and it stands for just one you. And I think 2025 is going to be the real year of discovering just one you. Because with everything that's going on in the world, the one thing that's going to be really critical, I feel, and I'm working on it myself, is to get connected to yourself and your higher self, or whatever you want to call it, God, source, spirit, whatever name you use, the capacity to really go deeply inside and connect to the peace that's deep within you. We all have it. And it's interesting because when I wrote the book, I was in America, and I just knew I had to write another book. And I'd written 2 or 3 books, and they were easy to write. I had no trouble writing them. But I knew I had to write a book on joy. So I tried 4, 5, 6 times, and I just couldn't write the thing. And then my mum died. And I was devastated. I came back to Australia and we dealt with all of that. And then I came back to the States, and my then husband and I moved to Vermont, and we were in Dallas. So if you know America, Dallas to Vermont is like sublime to ridiculous. You go from huge hair, big everything, and lots of money to no makeup, everything organic, and, just very earthy type people. And so I loved it. I was much more a Vermont girl than a Dallas girl. And
Sounds like my kind of place.
yeah, a bit like New Zealand too.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
Yeah.
And I woke up one morning after my mum had died, and I had this weird dream vision. I couldn't say exactly what it was, but she was talking to me and she said, I will put together a spiritual writing committee and you just meditate and we'll download the book to you. Well, I don't normally have dreams like that. So I'm there like, whoa, it's a bit odd. But I thought, well, nothing else is working, so I might as well try it. So I went downstairs and I meditated. And I can't say bugger me, but anyway, blow me down. I went to the computer straight afterwards and I wrote about 30 pages. And I had the whole book done. It's a long book, in about a month. It's like 300 pages. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because the last chapter I originally called equanimity, but I had to change it because nobody knew what equanimity meant really. And so I changed it to inner peace. And what amazed me was that chapter was like double the length of all the others. But I realized as it was being written through me, basically, that it encapsulated all the other chapters. So it was a really interesting process. And it's uber interesting just as I'm talking with you, because I think that's what we're all kind of coming to with everything that's going on in the world. Where the ones who are going to manage to get through this year with grace and ease are the ones who focus on finding that inner peace, on meditating or going inside or doing whatever you do to connect with yourself. And I'm trying all sorts of different ways. If I'd mastered it, I'd let you know. But I'm doing different things, but I'm really trying to focus in on connecting to my heart and staying there and feeling that I am presence.
Yes.
And there, it's interesting because I haven't talked about the book for ages because I wrote it quite a while ago, but there's a lot of concepts in there that are very relevant right now, which I've just realized this second. So maybe that makes me slow, but oh well.
Yeah, well, what you're saying, it's so important at the moment because it has been a very tough couple of years for many people, even, here in New Zealand, and with so many different changes and like we've talked about before, it's, not having the polarity and just focusing on your path of where you're going and what's happening in your life. And like I say, coming back to that peace within. And no matter what's going around you or happening around you, finding a space within yourself where you're okay with what's happening no matter what, Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that is critical, which is triggered by what you were saying, is that I've been studying with a guy called Paul Selig, who channels a group called Melchizedek, the guides, he calls them.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because we so many people seem to feel disconnected. They're not belonging, they're disconnected, they're separated. And the guides make a huge point about the single greatest error humans made is separation. because not only are we separating from ourselves, but as we judge others and as we live life the way we've managed to create it, it's full of separation. You know, there's
Yes.
wars because, and we say, well, that doesn't have anything to do with us. But while we have a war with a neighbor or a friend, or we see others as different, we don't see them as fractals of God or the spiritual beings that we are, then we continue to have the disharmony and the misery that goes on. It's kind of like a major joy killer, because what the separation does is it creates fear. So it's kind of a loop. Fear creates separation, but the separation creates fear. And when we feel excluded or left out or segregated or judged, any of those sorts of things split us apart instead of pulling us together. And I know that, you know, if we're mixing and matching all sorts of different philosophies and beliefs, the Bible says we are our brother's keeper. And the interesting thing about Paul Selig's books is that when I first started reading them, they have an extraordinary number of biblical references in it, but it's not die-hard religion.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because the principles are wonderful. They're like, we're our brother's keeper. In other words, we don't have to own someone else, but we should care about each other and look after each other and build
Yes.
communities. And as everybody's splitting and separating and warring and all of those sorts of things, more and more, I think people are coming back to that concept of togetherness and community and building each other up and helping each other, because we've lost so many of the important values. And it's interesting again because the book talks a lot about them. My book, that Joy is an Inside Job, about gratitude and being grateful for what others do for us instead of entitled, and kindness and compassion, because we tend to lose that too. And of course, I'm globally speaking, generically speaking.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you look at society, in many ways, Western cultures, we've lost our values and what really matters to us. And I think that's another important thing that people could think about, because how often do we stop and actually look at what really matters to us? And I had to do that last year because moving back to America, you know, I was 68 when I moved, and I sold a home I loved, and I loved living where I was. And I just had this knowing that I had to come back, but I didn't know what to, and it's still not quite clear. But I really had to internally investigate, and I've grown a lot. It hadn't been easy, but I've grown a lot. And do you know, when someone says to you, what really matters to you, you think that's an easy question to answer. It's like, oh, well. And then you start to think about it and you go, oh, well, wait. And it's kind of a hard question. I don't know if you've ever gone through that exercise. Have you?
Many times, you know, and you know, I'm constantly on a journey of personal growth, you know, and it's how you speak of, because your YouTube videos that I've watched and listened to was a great reminder, because even in my sessions, I tell people to come back, and the person they need to love the most is themselves.
Mm.
And your joy, you know, that you're promoting or teaching people how to come back to realizing that the joy is within ourselves, you know, and because we have part of that Western society as well. As I remember as a child, or around us, the image was, don't look in the mirror because you're vain, or
Yeah.
you've got to help everybody else because otherwise you're really selfish. If you did something for yourself, you're really selfish because you're not helping others. But if you don't look after yourself, you're no good to anybody else anyway. So
Yeah.
the person that is most important in your life is you, because you're the one in your body, your feet, you're walking your own path. But And by looking after yourself, it has a flow-on effect of people around you. And like you talk about, it's my focus, all the words is the collective consciousness.
Mm.
Everything that we do has a flow-on effect to everybody, and it is in, not just in our own environment, but consciously connected with everybody. So it's very relevant to what you're teaching and how you're helping people. And I really got a lot out of your YouTube podcast. So
Oh, that's great. Thank
yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Well, in terms of quantum physics, people who think this is a bit woo-woo, in quantum physics, we know we're all connected all the time.
Yeah.
And giving yourself permission to look after yourself
Yeah.
and really working on accepting yourself, because loving yourself is sometimes too big for people. Because by the time we're 7, epigenetics teaches us that the core fears are embedded. And the problem is no one else tells us the core fears. We tell ourselves the story that becomes the core fears. And they are, 1, I'm not good enough, I'm not worth loving. That's a double whammy, but it's number 1. Number 2 is I'm unsafe in some way. And number 3 is I'm separate. I don't belong, I don't fit in.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't know that growing up. I got the trifecta, but that was given to me on stage one day. Years ago now, but I've come to realize, because, I've been working on myself since I was 21, and I started reading a book called Wayne Dyer's Your Erroneous Zones, and no, erroneous. And I don't know, I was just the sort of person that worked on myself. And what I discovered is that despite all the work I'd done on myself, I kind of knew I didn't think I was worth loving, but I got so annoyed with people talking about the inner child. And I remember one day, look, everything's not about the inner child. Everything doesn't start from the inner child. Well, everybody upstairs must have been laughing their heads off, because I now, many years later, realize that 99% of the shit that we deal with every day comes from those stories we told ourselves as a child.
Yeah.
And, it's only about maybe a year ago that, in working with a wonderful woman in New Zealand, Michelle Robinson, whom I'm sure you'll interview, I discovered I'd actually been terrified since I was 2. And, I've been carrying around a terrified toddler inside a grown-up body all this time. And even 2 weeks ago, when I was spending Christmas with people I love, an adopted family here with my godchildren, I still, and I'm hoping it was the final cleansing, because otherwise I'm an incredibly slow learner, of the feeling separate and excluded and not belonging. And it was really interesting. And I think if we become observers of what's going on for ourselves, but still feel it, because I was brilliant at observing, but I hadn't felt since I was 2. I was a genius at that. I had cut myself off at the neck, and my brain would go, no, we don't go down there. No, we're not going down there. No, I've got this. No, we don't want to feel. And that held me back for such a long time, because I didn't remember my childhood. I thought that was normal. If you don't talk to other people about childhood memories and things, you don't realize, well, some people can remember everything. That was like pretty foreign to me. And so it took a long time to learn that I had those 3 core fears, stories that I was telling myself, observe them, and then catch myself when I'm reacting with a reflex that's based on the story. And then working at really, I know this sounds a bit corny and old, done by, but I found it so hard to actually be the parent to my little 2-year-old so she could settle down. I mean, I couldn't even imagine myself as a 2-year-old. I couldn't even find any pictures of me as a 2-year-old.
Right. Yeah.
And to imagine comforting her, it was so hard for me. And I'm a little bit better at it now. And once I've had the experience where she kind of fell asleep on, you know how babies fall asleep on your shoulder and
Yes.
their arm goes down, and it's so cute. Once I've had that experience. And I guess I'm sharing these things because for anybody that's listening, I'm 70 now, and I've worked on myself since I was 21, and it's an ever evolving process. And I would love to say to you that I have the answer neatly wrapped up in a package, but I'm sharing the stepping stones as I go along. And my mum's channeled book, if you like, or the book, has been a pretty useful guide along the way. And if I'd paid more attention to it, perhaps I would have been here a little faster. But, you know, discipline and sticking to things and life getting in the way, it distracts us, doesn't it? We can get distracted so easily.
Yes, and also, you know, everything's all about perfect timing, and things happen when the time is right. Yeah, but we do have to be motivated and make things happen as well. And what you're saying is very interesting as well, because I had a one-on-one session with Tabash last year, and it was very similar to what he said, I suppose, looking back at the inner child, that stepping out and moving forward to do the things that we want to do. He said, you know, look at all your fears, write all your fears down and face your fears, but in that moment, be thankful for them, because that's what's got you to where you are right now. But you're moving on from that. And I suppose in a way it was the, you know, looking at the inner child that has got you to that point, but and reassuring yourself, well, thank you very much for getting to me where I am now, but I'm moving on to different things now, but I will look after you. You are okay. So as a fear comes up, that's okay. I acknowledge that, but I'm moving on, and I will look after you. I don't need that anymore, type thing. And that's quite that was quite life-changing, really, as well. So
well, both of us were saying the same thing, really, isn't it?
Yes.
And Tabash, because I love Tabash, and he said similar things to me. But it's interesting because in the corporate world, this ties in so much to leadership and sales and pretty much everything, because it's the core of who you are. And who was it that said, who you are shouts so loudly I can't hear what you say? It was Ralph Waldo Emerson. And, you know, who you really are. And actually, just in this moment, I've realized it's not true in a particular way. Who you think you are shouts so loudly I can't hear what you say. The stories you are telling yourself about yourself, which is really about the core fears, shout so loudly. So you could have this brave face and real bravado and appear as confident can be. But if those core fears are sitting inside you and the stories are ruling your life, then that's what really shines out of you. And it's like you meet someone and they seem fantastic, they seem amazing, but something doesn't feel quite right. So, you know, you think, And I teach people about this, about the non-verbal communication and the energetics of it. So just in that moment, I realized when I say that he quotes, who you are shouts so loudly I can't hear what you say, the problem is that who you really are is this astonishing being of light. But we forgot the amazing spiritual beings that we are. And that was the reason we come to Earth, I think, to remember and then relearn to be the amazing beings that we are. Humans are incredible. And the human body is like a vessel for this astonishing being of light. And once you deal with the fears and you continue to work with them, then more of your essence can emanate out. And I studied with a man called David Martin for a long time. And that's one of the things that he teaches about getting back to your essence. And the essence of you, just one you, is the joy, but it gets coated with these fears and with the humanness that comes with being on this planet. And that's the stuff that makes the drama and the crises and the pain and the suffering, and all of those are opportunities for us. Every issue that comes up in your life is an opportunity for you to do something more, to work with yourself, to have another look inside. It's an opportunity to grow and develop. And we have to choose to look at it that way. And I know I would like to say I'm perfect at this, and I go, fabulous, here's another opportunity for growth and development. But no, I don't do that all the time. However, I don't stay very long in crisis mode or drama mode, because now I'm disciplining myself to go into the, oh, that's interesting. And that's one of the things I teach at the corporate events, because if I talk about the core fears, it helps people understand what drives others' behavior. So you can lead more effectively, or you can interact with colleagues more effectively, or you can make sales more effectively, because you're understanding people better at that root level, at a really basic level. And Michael Grinder, another mentor of mine, lets me use this kind of metaphor, if you like. So if you imagine three stick chairs in a row, and in the front chair is the behavior of anyone, whether it's a child or an adult, even a dog, really, but let's just stick with adults or children. Here's the behavior you want to change. Behind the behavior in the chair is the fear that's driving that behavior. Behind the fear is the need, that if you feel the need, it takes away the fear, which changes the behavior. So, for example, somebody feels isolated, lonely, but their behavior is very aggressive. It's, well, I don't need to fit in here, and they exclude themselves. So it's kind of like sabotaging themselves. Yeah. But their fear is that they don't belong, they don't fit in. And then if you think about what they need encouragement and reinforcement that they're a valuable part of the team or the family, or that they do belong. We want you to belong. We love you. At the end of the day, every human wants to be valued, seen, heard, loved, acknowledged. That's,
yes.
That's like in a box, how to find joy. And the interesting thing is we want it from other people, but we don't give it to ourselves. Yeah. How many of us, those of you who are listening now, if you think really seriously about this and contemplate it for a while afterwards, how much do you truly value yourself? How much do you actually see yourself, listen to yourself? How much do you give yourself compassion and grace? How much do you acknowledge yourself? How much do you accept yourself? They're all the things that we so desperately want from others. We really desperately want from ourselves. Yeah. But we're too busy trying to find it from others because we don't stop to be still, yeah, to dwell on those things. Yes. And I'm just as guilty as anybody listening. I mean, there would be people listening who are brilliant at this. They've sorted their lives out and they're fabulous, and go them. I wish I was you, but I'm still a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many people at the moment are shifting, are changing. And, in the work that I do, I can see that they're becoming more aware of this consciousness, not just within themselves, but the collective consciousness. So that's why I see that your work is so important for people, because of the work and what you're teaching and how you're coaching to bring people back to that, loving within themselves, or the joy within themselves. So it has also the flow-on effect. So
yeah, and I think lots of people think joy. When they think joy, they think, whoa, party, fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, the writing the book, I learned joy is actually a state, really, it's ultimately inner peace, total acceptance of yourself, and truly knowing who you are, the astonishing being that you are, and the impact that you have once you acknowledge the divinity in everything, including yourself. And you know, again, whatever religious or spiritual philosophy you have, most people would say that there's a divine spark in everything. And you know, we can see it easily in nature, and we forget that it's in humans. Every one of us is walking around as a divine spark, doing our best in a human body, trying to get back to being the divine spark
Yes.
and lighting up others. So, you know, all the metaphors about be the what is it? Be the candle that lights up the darkness, be the candle that lights up other candles, maybe be the match, whatever. I call them spirit igniters and spirit fuffers. So it's your choice. I mean, I try to find funny ways to deliver deep concepts. And I say to large groups, you know, every single person sitting in this room has got a pilot light inside their hearts.
Yeah.
And that pilot light is their spirit. It's kind of the divine spark that is there at the moment of conception. And lots of people walk around and they see somebody who's enthusiastic and bright and or happy in some way, and they try to pull them down. And I call those people spirit puffers. That, you know, they walk around and they blow out the pilot light. And then there are others who are spirit igniters. And most spirit igniters, not all, but most, feel pretty good about themselves, or they've accepted themselves, warts and all. And they can go around and see the divinity and the beauty in others, and they can acknowledge others. And you know, I do that a lot. I've always done that, where I can see how astonishing other people are. But I really struggled to see me as astonishing in any way.
Yeah.
So that's why I put the codicil on that comment. People who feel good about themselves can be spirit igniters. But there's also a category who don't actually feel too good about themselves, but they're brilliant at seeing the divine spark in others, the spirit in others, because for me anyway, it was a way to stay safe when I was little. If I could build rapport, my dad was an alcoholic and my mum had left for a year when I was about 2 or 3, but I didn't know any of this. I found all this out. And so that fear that I've had and I'm now mastering since I was a little girl made me brilliant. One of the pluses was I can build rapport with anyone, anywhere, anytime, in any situation. And it doesn't matter who it is. So it stood me in good stead.
Yeah.
But if you look at how I became so good at that, that's something I had to deal with.
Yeah.
But it ended up having really positive outcomes in one way.
Yeah. The other thing that stands out from your podcasts as well is FOWOT. And
oh yeah,
if I I will let you explain that, but to be honest, for me, you know, yes, I've had that, but um, if I was stuck in FOWOT, I wouldn't have done half of the things that I'd done and moved forward in the work that I've been doing. But so yes, tell us about FOWOT. I just think it's fabulous.
oh wonderful. It's fear of what others think. And almost everybody's plagued with it. Although one of the great gifts my mother gave me, I truly don't think I left home worrying about what other people thought, because I came from such an eccentric family. Nobody cared what anybody else thought about them. I don't think we were even interested in it. I hadn't explored it that deeply. But the truth is, no one's ever thinking about you, ever, really, because they're so obsessed with what you are thinking about them. They don't have time to think about you. And if we could teach our children this, and because social media is FOWOT on a stick.
Yeah.
you get to social media and you see what a fabulous life somebody else is having, or the wonderful iced coffees they're having, or the spectacular dinner, or the moment. It's so wrong at so many levels, because 90% of I actually think it would be nearly 90% of the time what is portrayed on social media, that we have fear of missing out, FOMO, and FOWOT. We're
Yes.
presenting this fake image because we want other people to think great things about us and that we've got our lives together, and gosh, be jealous of my life. And it's a lie. 90% of people, I think, are presenting fake representations of their lives. And I know a particular family that have portrayed one image to the world, and it's so far from the truth of what actually goes on. So worrying about what other people think about you can only lead to misery.
Yes.
It's not a joy builder. It's a real joy killer.
Yes.
And so your core fears are joy killers. FOWOT's a joy killer. Comparison, which comes into FOWOT, is a major joy killer. And beating ourselves up, which really comes from the core fears, because we don't feel good enough, we don't feel we're worth loving, we don't feel safe. And so to keep out, we've chosen all sorts of creative ways to keep ourselves so-called safe. For me, not feeling, keeping myself excluded, even though I desperately wanted to be included, sabotaging things that I wanted because it was safer to do that than to actually have someone else do what I was doing to myself. So I guess a couple of key things to take away to help you build your joy is to change the stories about your fears and to recognize the fears as just, this is a little terrified child. You've got a toddler walking around in this grown-up body, and the toddler doesn't have the capacity to understand the truth of a situation. It doesn't have a perspective. If mummy yells at a toddler, the toddler doesn't go, "Oh, mummy, I know you're exhausted because I haven't slept for 3 weeks and nor have you." The toddler doesn't do that. The toddler goes, "Ah, mummy doesn't love me. I'm going to die." And so that's what we're carrying. So number one is to pay attention to your inner child and change the story. So nurture that little child, tell them they're safe. And as Tobias said, say, "I understand and I'm grateful for how you've kept me safe all these years, and I've got this now. We're grown up and I've got you. I'm going to keep you safe." And then you carry on. So if you can lose the control the core fears have over you, that's amazing. Then deeply connect with your heart and yourself, because knowledge grows in the head, but wisdom grows in the heart. And whenever you make a decision from the head, almost 99% of the time, there'll be fear attached to it. Whenever you make a decision with fear attached to it, it's going to shoot you in the foot. It'll bite you in the bum, whatever phrase you want to use. But when you make a decision from the heart, it's a knowing. And a knowing never has fear attached to it. And every single one of you listening can relate to something you've done in your lives where you just knew you needed to do it, or you knew it was the right thing to do. Like my first marriage, I knew walking down the aisle, I should not be doing it. And I was right, but I kept going. So I overrode that knowing. And so you can all relate to that. So reconnecting with yourself and understanding who you truly are, your essence, the astonishing nature of your true being. Those are things that are going to build joy and that sense of peace throughout what could potentially be a tumultuous year.
Absolutely, yes. And other than your group conferences, you're offering coaching as well, aren't you? Is that one-on-one coaching or group coaching, or just?
It's one-on-one at the moment, and it's often for speakers who want to enhance their speaking skills or become professional. And more, I'm getting people, executives who want to dive a bit deeper into what's driving them. And I have to say that it's really a lot of fun and interesting. And people will call me up to get coaching on one particular thing. And it's amazing because they want to do something in their lives. And it's amazing how often when I ask them why they want to do this, and when we dig a bit deeper, they actually don't want to do it at all. But they need to be dealing with the fears, and then they find it's something completely different that they want to do that brings them much more joy. So thank you for giving me an opportunity for speaking about that.
Oh, you're very welcome. And have you got things planned coming up for the new year? Well, we are now in the new year, aren't we?
I know, it's
2025.
scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I don't have, I'm not putting on any workshops yet. I may towards the end of the year, but I am going to start a more formal podcast. I've got my
Right.
YouTube channel and
Yes.
I have speaking engagements booked, but I'm working better at social media, posting more. So if people want
Yeah.
to sign up on my usual channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, everything.
Yes.
I have someone helping me post a lot of videos so they
Yeah.
can follow me there and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I think I'll do the podcast a bit like you through the YouTube channel, and then I don't know, do it on Spotify or something like that. And you
Yeah.
had a great idea. Thank you very much, Belinda, about
You're
making my
welcome.
book and available on Spotify. So I will start that. I'll
Yeah.
start recording soon. It's a
Yeah.
long book. It's going to be a lot
Yeah.
of recording.
Yeah, well, like I said to you, I like reading books, but I'm very audio visual. So discovering books on Spotify, and other people have Audible, but I'm a fan of Spotify because I use the music in healing
Yeah.
sessions. So and listening to books is, as we're busy. Like I said to you, I was doing housework and mowing the lawns and all sorts of things while I was listening to your podcasts, or when you're driving the car or on a train, or all those different things when we're busy, just put your headphones on and away you go, you're listening to a book. So you're not having to wait till you're sitting in one place reading a book, so makes it more accessible. Yeah. But with your
It does.
coaching, would you be open to offering it to, because it's obviously individuals, just people that reach out to you that would like coaching?
Mm. Yeah, I would be. So they
Yeah.
can just reach me on amanda@amandagore.com or on the
Yeah.
website, amandagore.com.
Yeah.
And Mel or I'll get back to you and we can work out what it is that you're looking for. Or if you've got a group of people who want to go through
Yes.
some coaching on an ongoing basis, I'd be happy to speak with you about that.
Yeah.
Or if you've got a group, if you're listening to this and you've got a small company, because most people who book me, they're fairly large corporations.
Yeah.
But if you have smaller companies and you would like maybe a virtual event, or you're in the States and I can fly to you, I'd be happy to come and do some more
Yeah.
workshops, because I'm veering to. I started off doing a lot of training, and then I worked into keynotes. So the primary work I did was opening and closing pretty large events, up to 20,000 people.
Yeah.
But I actually love the workshops because it gives
Yeah.
people more time to absorb the information and actually change while they're there. So I work very hard with my keynotes to make sure that it's not just a one-hit wonder. I work at many layers of process so that it's not just delivering a speech. I orchestrate it so that it really touches people's hearts. And I set a field, a la quantum field, before I speak. So it's much deeper than just a normal
Yes.
speech, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah.
And with a workshop, it just gives me more time. I don't have to say, stop laughing and stop clapping because we haven't got time. We can all laugh and have a good time.
Yes, yeah. Yes, so I recommend people looking at your podcasts on YouTube, because it gives you a great idea of what they would get as a group or individuals. So it was, yeah, I get a lot of joy out of listening to your podcast. And a lot of those aha moments, you're like, oh right, yes, yes, of course, so it's been very helpful. So I will
Thanks.
put you're welcome. I'll put all of your links in the end of, or at least when I put our podcast live, to where people can access you and connect with
Thanks.
you. And I thank you very much for coming on today and introducing yourself. And I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much.
Well, and can I just honor you, because you're amazing.
Thank you.
For those of you who are listening, Tabash had suggested I reach out to Belinda. And Belinda just started this podcast. She kind of reinvented herself in the last 18 months, and with such lovely humility and grace. And you're really just getting in and doing it. And I so admire that. So thank you for being willing to have a conversation with me today. And for those of you who are watching, keep an eye on Belinda. I think she's going to be pretty amazing out there.
Just as you said that, your screen froze.
Oh, really? Has it come back to life yet?
Yes, it has. Yeah. But
well, it must have been significant then.
Yes, well, thank you very much for the acknowledgement. I really appreciate that, and I will continue to have more podcasts with people, and part of that was releasing a FOWOP.
Yeah, exactly.
And not thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to look like? How am I going to sound? And what if I say the wrong thing? And all of those things. It's just like, it is what it is. And I'm bringing people to the forefront that are helping lots of people. And so I'm just going to do it. And so that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
And that authenticity is really going to help it be successful.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of superstars in the world. We just need wonderful human beings, and we're all wonderful, to be stepping out and forgetting FOWOT and forgetting the fears and just be you.
Yeah.
Because you're amazing. Probably a good note to end, isn't it?
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And like I say, I really appreciate your time today. And I look forward to sharing this podcast with people and getting it out to as many people as possible. And to me, even if it just helps one person, it's made a difference. So
yeah.
Thank you for your time. Yes, absolutely.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.